Transitions Radio Talk Show with yours truly, Coach Latoya, here on WDRB Media, the voice of the community. Happy Saturday, my listeners. Welcome, welcome to another fantastic show. I am so excited to get into the conversation today. So please, if you could, help me welcome to the show my fellow Rattler classmate. Come on, come on. All right, representing ATL. Come on, Mr. Charles Johnson. How you doing?
Coach, what's happening? It's so good to be here with you, and happy Saturday to all your listeners. First and foremost, it's an honor to be here, and man, life is amazing, man. First and foremost, I just want to thank you for just being who you are, for what you mean to this community, and it's giving us the opportunity to share a little bit. So I'm excited to catch up, talk to your listeners about health equity, about what we need to do in our country to strengthen and empower families, and how they can take matters into their own hands and really grab a hold of their destiny when it comes to their health and wellness, specifically when it comes to how we are planning our families in the community. So it's an honor and a privilege to be here. I know that you've known me far before I was on this journey. You know what I'm saying? You knew me in my knucklehead days, man. I'm still a little bit of a knucklehead, but all that being said, I just am grateful to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, thank you. And our listeners, you guys are in for a really good treat today. So I'm excited to jump in. So Charles, I just want to say, if you could, for those that are new to this story, that aren't aware of For Cure for Moms, that aren't aware of your mission
Yeah.
and all the things that you've been, your road, your progress up to this point, could you just tell our listeners a little bit of introduction about you and who you are and your drive and initiatives over these last few years?
Sure, sure. So, as I mentioned, I'm Charles Johnson the fourth. I was fortunate enough, and this story really all starts with me meeting a woman that absolutely changed my life, right?
Mm.
Um, I'm the founder of an organization called For Cure for Moms, which we founded in honor of my late wife, Kira, who unfortunately passed away giving birth to our second son, Langston, in 2016. And so I always start every time I share the work. I ground it in her and her energy and her memory. And really, Kira, the best way I can describe her, I know you've heard me talk about her a lot, and I can brag about Kira all day long, but the best way I can sum her up is truly sunshine personified.
Mm.
She was the most remarkable human that I've ever met. We're talking about a woman that raced cars, who ran marathons, who spoke 5 languages fluently, traveled all over the world, started businesses, never met a stranger. And so I always wanted to be a dad. I'm a huge kid. And so we welcomed our first son in 2014, Charles V. And shortly after that, we started talking about how cool it would be to have back-to-back boys, and
Okay.
boys that would grow up close in age and kind of built in best friends. And so when we found out we were welcoming our second son, Langston, in 2016, you couldn't tell us nothing. We were on top
Yeah.
of the world.
Yeah.
We had, as you mentioned, we were both proud natives of Atlanta, Georgia, and um, we had made the decision to relocate to Los Angeles, California.
Okay.
Uh, And the painful irony of what I'm going to share with you is that as a father, as a husband, you want the best for your family, and you want the best for your wife, you want the best for your child. And so uh, during our second pregnancy with Langston, we made the decision to give birth at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. For those of you all who are not familiar with Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and their reputation, it is this fancy hospital in Beverly Hills that is supposed to be one of the best places for, you know,
Yeah.
medicine, and
Yeah.
especially they have a reputation around labor and delivery. And so
Okay.
we really thought that this was going to be the place that would give um, Kira and Langston the best opportunity to thrive.
Yeah. You did your homework. You did your
We
research.
did our homework,
Yes.
right? We did our homework, we did our research. Um, I thought that I was prepared. I never missed a prenatal visit. I read the books. I attended all the Lamaze classes. I toured the hospital. Um, and we thought we were ready. And honestly, Latoya, we thought that this is going to be a walk in the park. This is our second time around, right? You know how this works.
Yeah.
Those of y'all who are parents, the first time it's all the overbuying, over anticipation, you're just anxious. But the second time it's like, we got this. We know what to do. We know what to expect. We're going to go in the hospital. We're going to kick it for a couple of days. we're gonna come home.
Yeah.
And so on April 12th of 2016, we walked into Cedars-Sinai Medical Center for what we expected to be the happiest day of our lives, and we ended up walking straight into a nightmare. Um, it's important to understand that what I'm going to share with you, that Kira was not just in good health; she was in exceptional health.
Okay.
No pre-existing conditions. This was not a pregnancy that we expected to be high risk by any means.
Okay.
All signs pointed to her and our baby both being extremely healthy. And so we went in for what was supposed to be a routine scheduled cesarean because she had a cesarean during the first labor, and that was our doctor's recommendation. So keep that in. That's an important note
Got it.
for your listeners. So we go in um, that afternoon. The delivery was at 2 o'clock. Langston comes out perfectly healthy, 10 fingers, 10 toes. Like I joke, super handsome, looking just like me, right? This is it.
Yeah.
This is everything we had prayed for, everything we had planned for. It was finally here. Shortly after that, they take us back to recovery, right? Which is normal in a cesarean delivery. And as Kira is there resting and Langston is there resting, um, that's when things begin to take a turn for the worse.
Okay.
And as Kira is there resting, I'm just soaking all this in, all this pride of becoming a father for the second time. And as I look down, I can see blood in her catheter,
Ooh.
right? And so this is around 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
Ooh. Okay. So about
right?
two
And so
hours post delivery. Okay.
mhm. And
All
so I
right.
bring it to the attention of the doctors and the nurses. Um, they come in, they examine Kira, they examined her physically, they ran a series of tests, they drew blood, but very importantly, they ordered a CT scan or a CAT scan that was supposed to perform stat. And
Okay.
so for stat, I know a lot of us watch, everybody knows what stat means. It means right now. All of
Right
us
now.
watch medical dramas, it means right now, right? And so at this point, Latoya, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm concerned, but I'm thinking Kira's healthy, my baby's healthy, and we're at Cedars-Sinai,
The
this place
best
that's
place.
supposed to
Right.
be the place, right?
Right.
So that's around 4 o'clock. Okay. 5 o'clock comes, no CT scan,
Mm.
right? And I'm asking, hey, look, where's that CT scan? They're saying, oh, sir, it's coming. It's coming, right? 6 o'clock comes,
Mm.
no CT scan.
Mm.
And I'm continuing to ask, hey, what's going on? Where's the CT scan? And they say, oh, sir, by this time her blood work has come back.
Okay.
And it's showing that all of her blood levels are abnormally low, right?
Mm.
She's having pain in her abdomen, um, but still no CT scan, right? Uh, 7 o'clock comes,
Oh my goodness.
and by this time, Kira is shivering uncontrollably,
Oh.
right?
Oh.
Um,
Mm.
and I'm continuing to ask, hey, look, where's the CT scan? They're saying,
Yeah.
oh, we don't know, and this run around, this game of dismissal and denial and deprioritization of her is just continuing to escalate.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand that when we got the medical records back, we discovered that Kira was classified as a surgical emergency at 6:40. Now it's 7 o'clock.
Oh.
Still no CT scan. Nobody's done anything. And I'm asking, I'm continuing to ask, hey, look what's going on. What are we doing? And they're saying, oh, sir, we might have to take her back for surgery. And there's just like, but we'll find out. And people are coming and they're not coming back. I'm continuing to ask. I'm going out in the hall trying to get answers. Nothing is happening. 8 o'clock, no CT scan.
Oh my goodness.
Kira's increasingly in pain. She's having trouble staying awake. Um, Only thing they've done, and so 9 o'clock comes. She's still there suffering. And around 9 o'clock, the only thing that they've done up to this time is give Kira IV fluids,
Oh.
right? And so now it's 9 o'clock, and around 9 o'clock, a nurse comes in to change her IV, and out of kind of like desperation, like I waited till she got done. I followed her outside the room, and I instinctually, I grabbed her by both of her hands and I looked her in the eyes. I said, "Look, my wife is not doing well.
Yeah.
They said they were going to take her back for a CT scan. Nobody has come. They said that they might take her back to surgery. Nobody is doing anything. And I said, can you please just help us?
Yeah.
Just help us.
Yeah.
At which point, this woman snatched her hands away from me and she looked me dead in my face and she said words to me that still haunt me to this day. She said, "Sir, your wife just isn't a priority right now.
Woo. Woo.
Your
Oh my.
wife just isn't a priority."
Oh,
Right? 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, no CT scan. I'm still asking, I'm still advocating, I'm still begging them to do something. 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. It wasn't until 12:30 that they finally made the decision to take Kira back to surgery. Keep in mind, she went in there at 2 o'clock for that delivery. So all this time, she's been there suffering, bleeding needlessly for more than 10 hours.
you know.
So now it's after midnight. I'm frustrated, I'm angry, but part of me is relieved because they're finally doing something. So at this point, she's exhausted, um, she's weak, but she's conscious and she's aware of everything that's going on. And so they mobilize her and they take her to the OR, and we're making that walk down the
Yeah.
hallway. She said something to me that I never heard her say. She says, "Baby, I'm scared." And I'm doing my
Mm.
best to reassure her that everything's going to be okay. And finally, we get to that set of double doors to the operating room, and the double doors open and they close behind her. When they took her back to surgery and they opened her up, there were 3 liters of blood in her abdomen,
Wow.
and her heart stopped immediately. They tried to work on her for some time, but they were unable to save her. And right around 2 a.m., the morning of April 13th, 2016, Kira Dixon Johnson was pronounced dead at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And so for me, no, thank you. And
Oh,
so for me, I'm always transparent. I'm transparent to a fault. And the thought that afternoon that I would walk into that hospital, and I would not walk out with my wife, it never crossed my mind. Um, and so now I'm in a place where I'm trying to put the pieces back together and I'm trying to figure out what's happening. I'm trying to make sense of this because it just isn't adding up. And I'm gonna be straight up, I really thought that what happened to Kira was a freak occurrence. I
yeah.
thought this does not happen in 2016 in the United States to women that are healthy, that do everything right,
Yeah.
that have access to healthcare, that have husbands that are there fighting for them. It doesn't happen. And then I began to hear these other stories, right, Latoya, of other families that have had horrific birthing experiences, right?
Yeah.
And I know you have your personal experience, and I know we have friends that have had their experiences, other families that have experienced obstetric violence, neglect, what we call near miss birthing events. And then ultimately, other families that had made that ultimate sacrifice, other mothers that had made that ultimate sacrifice,
Yeah.
just trying to give the gift of life.
Yeah.
And so at first, I'm gonna keep it funky, right? Like, I thought that this was just people's way of trying to connect with me and support me in
Mm.
my grief, right?
Okay.
But the more I'm hearing these stories,
Yep.
the more I'm thinking, hey, something just ain't right. And so that's when I began to do the research for myself. And I came to understand what I'm sure many of your listeners know, but some of them don't know. So I'm going to take a moment and break it down a little bit. We are in the midst of a maternal mortality crisis right here in the United States.
Yes.
Currently, the United States leads the industrialized world in women dying from childbirth, right? Um, it is safer to give birth, and this is by no means a shot or disparaging, in Haiti, um, in many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, um, many parts of South and Central America, many countries that we look down on as third, um, as you know, as less than. It is safer to give birth. They have better maternal health outcomes than the United States with all of our wealth, all our modern technologies.
Right.
But what's even more frightening and what this community needs to understand is that within that very shocking statistic, Black women specifically are dying at rates 5 times as often as white women.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know how I could make an impact, but I felt like I had to do something. I felt like I had to do something. I felt like I owed it to Kira, and I felt like I owed it to my boys. And so I founded this organization for Cure for Moms. And for the past 8 years, um, every day, like I said, I start my day on my knees in prayer, and the first step I take is to put my foot on the neck of anybody that is standing in the way of making sure that families receive the safe,
Yeah,
dignified care that they
absolutely.
deserve.
Absolutely. So one, thank you for sharing the story. I know that, going through those details every, time someone's asking you about it, I could tell that you were feeling those emotions again.
Yeah,
So thank you for sharing that with our listeners. And thank you for saying, hey, I'm hearing these stories, but hold on, wait a minute, right? Because I think that happens to a lot of people, right? I think when people go through things and you're like, oh, people are just sending their condolences, they just want to connect and that sort of thing. But so I just want to give you kudos and props for saying,
thank you.
hold on, wait a minute. I'm hearing too many of these things. Or better yet, too many of these things happening, like you said, 5 times more for Black women in the place that we call the free world, the best world, right? We're supposed to be in the land of the free, all of these great things,
All of it. All of it.
and we have better chances of delivering and labor and deliver in another country. So one, I do want to stop there and just say thank you, and thank you for
Oh,
what you've
thank you.
done. Thank you
Thank
for,
you. It's
I
my
mean,
honor.
because this has really, it started, I think, as just, hey, I want to do more, and now, you have really progressed, and I know we will get to that. But I just want to say, even, just thank you for having that thought, for being the
No,
voice for
thank you.
so many women, being the voice for the voiceless, the ones that aren't able to speak anymore, like Kira, right, and like so many others, and then continuing to carry that torch. So definitely want to give you kudos for that. So in
Thank
in
you.
the last 8 years or so, tell us a little bit about what you've done and who you've partnered with, and that sort of thing, and just some progress you've made.
Yeah. So I think fundamentally, right, and thank you for saying that. And I think that for me, the difficult part about this is simply that there's nothing that I can do to bring my wife back. There's
Yeah,
nothing I can do, and every day I live with regrets. Like, how should I approach this? What should I have done different? What could I have done to make sure that as a husband, that's your number one role, to like protect your family, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so I struggle with that. But for me, I've just done my best to understand that, even though there's nothing I can do to bring Kira back, the highest honor I can pay her, the highest honor I can pay every single mother that we've lost, is to do everything I can to make sure other mothers go home with their precious babies.
yes,
So that fundamentally is at the core of this work. Is, um, you know, we went through a nightmare to make sure that every other family gets to live their dream.
yeah,
And so we founded this organization with a simple mission.
yeah,
I don't want to improve maternal health outcomes. I want to eradicate the maternal mortality crisis.
yes,
Right? Right now in the United States, here's another statistics. I'm gonna throw some data at you, right? Because I know some people get this. This will just kind of make you just like, each year we're losing about 1,200 mothers. So today in the United States, 3 mothers won't go home with their babies. Now this is what's scary. The CDC has determined that 84% of those deaths are preventable.
oh,
This isn't my research. This is
oh,
the Center for Disease Control. The federal government has determined that right here in the United States, 84% out of the mothers that we are losing are preventable. 4 out of every 5 should be here at the first day of kindergarten, should be at the first day
right,
of soccer, dancing at weddings. And they deserve to grow old and be grandmothers, and they're being stolen from us.
yes,
Not to mention, disproportionately, those mothers are Black. So those numbers are shocking, but
yes,
that's where the opportunity lies. And so we approach this work in 3 very simple categories. It's educate, advocate, and legislate. So from education, we educate and empower families with the tools and resources they need to be empowered as they approach before, during, and after the birthing process. So that
Okay.
looks like, how do I select a provider, right? What are the options available to me? What's the difference between a doula, a midwife, and an OBGYN? So they
Yep.
can understand what's the best fit for me.
Yeah.
And I believe that every family should have access to the birthing experience of their choice, and it should be paid for. So we fight for that as well. It looks like educating and empowering the perinatal workforce so that they can come to this work centering empathy and compassion. Because the
Yeah.
reality of the situation is, so many of these deaths and these incidents are from what I call a result of what I call the Great American Compassion Deficit. And I'll come back to that.
Okay.
And so we've developed tools and curriculums for implicit bias training in hospitals. And we've developed curriculums for medical school students, centered in cures experience and lived experiences, so that we can train up a new generation of doctors, nurses, midwives that center these things.
Okay.
It looks like one of the things we're really excited about, Latoya, is our one of our latest programs is specifically focused on empowering fathers,
Yes. Okay. Okay.
right? All these other things are great. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of amazing people that are doing wonderful work, and we want to focus and uplift and center the mother and the baby. But that father, that non-birthing parent, is oftentimes left out of the Trinity.
Yeah.
And so for us, so we've launched a program called For Cure for Dads, with the mission of empowering fathers with the tools and resources they need to be more in service of the mother. So what does that look like? How am I there? What questions do I ask when I show up? How do
Yeah.
I make sure I go to a prenatal appointment and they're talking to us,
Yes.
not her,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
How do I advocate for her in the event that she's not able to advocate for herself?
Myself. Yes.
Right? How do I recognize and how do I support things like preeclampsia, postclampsia,
Hmm.
postpartum depression? How do
Hmm.
I recognize and make sure that my mental health is in mind, so I can be the best partner I can be going forward?
Yeah.
And then how do I go forward? So we're excited about that. So that's education. I won't bore y'all with that. And then from an advocacy standpoint, we provide resources and we do our best to support families that have been impacted by maternal mortality and morbidity. And so that
Okay.
looks like grief counseling, that looks like resources, that looks like anything that a family could need. And so we have programs designed specifically for that. And then last but not least, legislation.
Yes.
And so we've had the good fortune to work on a lot of legislation on both the state and federal level. Starting at the state level, we've worked closely to expand postpartum Medicaid throughout the country. In 2021, I think we only had 3 states that had postpartum coverage for mothers up to a year postpartum. And so what
Wow.
happens is, oftentimes when we look at this data, it's important to understand that we are measuring mothers from a year. It can be a pregnancy related cause from the moment after death or during childbirth, all the way up to a year postpartum.
Okay.
So what's happening is, in many states, Medicare coverage was ending after 6 weeks. Like right here in Georgia, after 6 weeks, so mothers weren't having any coverage. So if their blood pressure is spiking, or they're
Right.
having insane swelling and their
Right.
ankles are looking like they they don't have anywhere to go, and so
Yeah.
mothers are falling between the cracks. And so um, we had to think, like I said, less than 10 states. I forget what it was. I think maybe no more than 6 in 2021. As of January of this year, we're up to 47 states that have a year,
Oh, wow. Yes.
right? And so we worked really hard to get that done. On the federal level, in 2019, we worked to pass the first ever piece of federal legislation to prevent mothers from dying in childbirth, called the Preventing Maternal Deaths Act. Um, I had the opportunity to testify before Congress and support that. That bill uh, passed in a very, very difficult political climate, smack in the middle of President Trump's
Yeah.
first term. And they told us 2 things over and over again, Latoya. They told us that, one, women's health issues aren't a priority.
Mm.
Where I heard that before,
Yeah.
right? And they
Hmm.
told us that it was just too divisive. And so we were able to do is we were able to reframe this issue around maternal health as what it truly is. It's not a women's health issue. It's not a black issue. It's not a white issue. It's not a conservative issue. It's not a liberal issue. It is a human rights issue. It should
Yes.
be a fundamental human right. It's Saturday morning. Audience, are you listening? It should be a fundamental human right for a mother to give birth to a healthy child in our country and live to raise that child.
Yes.
It's not an unreasonable expectation, right? And you can measure a society by how they treat their women and their children, and
Yeah.
we're failing. So we got that done. They dedicated it to Cure on the Senate floor, and that was a start, but it was just a start. And so we went back in 2021 with a new set of bills. Currently, I have a set of 13 bills in Congress called the Black Maternal Health Momnibus.
Okay.
Within that set of bills, and I'll share the websites that y'all can go. I won't walk you through that. I won't drag y'all through that class, but they're there. You can read more about that and how you can request that your senator and your congressman support those bills. And within that set of bills is the Kira Johnson Act. It's named for Kira and does a lot of cool things, including providing funding specifically for, you ready for this, community? Black women-led community-based organizations.
Wow. Okay.
Right? Because what
Yes.
we've seen when we talk about funding, and let's keep it funky. I don't care. I don't care. People can say what they want, but the reality of the situation is the federal government will see a problem and they'll throw funding at it.
Yeah.
What happens oftentimes with that funding, Latoya, is let's say, okay, hey, we're going to release. You'll see these headlines. The Senate approves $1 billion to fight for breast cancer research, or to for homelessness, or da, da, da. What happens is the funding, there's a disconnect between the funding and the people who are in the communities doing the work with their hands on the bellies, supporting the mamas,
Yep.
feeding the kids, doing this. And oftentimes, these organizations are led by Black women who
Hmm.
are doing the most with the least, as we have done since the beginning of time,
That's day one. Yes.
and holding the sky up.
Yep.
And so for us, and then what happens is these large legacy organizations,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
We know the names, get
Yep.
these pools of funding, and then they make the smaller
Little.
organizations jump and sing for their supper.
Yep.
And they set these tools and this funding just out of reach, and they continue to pay themselves fat salaries,
Yep.
and then they sprinkle the crumbs throughout our community. And
Yep.
then they go back and collect data and research and get more funding.
Yep.
No, if my wife's name is going to be attached, we're going to give it to the people that need it.
Absolutely.
And not to say that other organizations aren't worthy, but we're going to make sure that we're empowering them. I got on my soapbox. I'm sorry.
No,
So
no, this
that's
is
that,
good. This is
right?
good
And so
because
it's important. So
I'm a community person. This is good. And I
right,
truly believe, like, I for a few years I was president of the 100 Black Women chapter here, right? And you're right. We were scraping for funding, but we were the ones in the
in
street.
the community,
Yes, we're
in
here
the streets,
doing the work, advocating for Black women and girls, right? But when there were opportunities for funding, we are jumping through hoops, right? Where there's all kinds of red tape for us to go through, but we have the real data.
just out of distance. You have to have this. You have to have all these things that they know
Yeah,
small nonprofits do not have. You have to
exactly.
have X amount of years of audited financials. That's $10,000 off the top,
Yep,
right?
yep.
You have to have this. And not only that, oftentimes as a people, the people that are in the community, they're doing the work, so they don't have time to do the administration to meet these things. Or you get a packet from the federal government that's this thick, and it's intimidating.
Yes,
So guess who gets it? The person that has staff just for
just
this.
for it,
It's,
just
it's
for it.
crazy. So that's a
Yeah.
whole nother episode, right?
It
But we're
is.
changing
Sorry.
that. We're changing that. So
Yes.
there's that piece, and so that's the Momnibus. We just introduced another piece of legislation that we're really proud of called the Dads Matter Act.
Okay.
We dropped that in June. That's in partnership, and this is cool because for all my Florida people listening, this is, and my Georgia people and people across the country. This is a unique opportunity. It's a bipartisan piece of legislation introduced by not only our senator from the great state of Georgia, I'm sorry, Senator Warnock, but also we have Marco Rubio. So we have a Republican, yeah, right. And so this piece of
Oh,
legislation is once again going back, as I was saying, going back to dads, specifically focused on empowering dads to be in support of moms. So that's big picture what we do. I also work a lot with companies in the private sector on how they can include maternal mortality as a part of their social responsibility. How do they shape benefits?
yes.
Another thing I got to put out there too, we're huge advocates, and we also have legislation going on about paid leave for all,
Wow.
universal paid leave,
Yes.
right? And how that can affect families, strengthen families. And so we're fighting the fight on a lot of fronts, but I'm proud of the work that we're doing.
Yes. Yes. So definitely. I mean, you're busy and you have a lot of things going on, a lot of good things going on. And so kudos to you for making such progress like over these years.
Thank
I
you.
do want to say that from the time, from the time of Kira's death in 2016, when you created For Cure for Moms in 2018, was that how long did it?
Let me tell you, I don't think I actually officially stood up the organization until 2018, 2019. I was
Okay.
just out there doing the work, and I didn't even. I was just one crazy dad, running around like John Q, right?
Come
Like just trying to do something.
on.
I didn't know what I was doing.
But
I didn't know how any of this stuff worked. I didn't know, and I'm still figuring it out every day.
yeah,
So
but you had it here in your heart and you knew you
sure,
were going to make a change. You knew that something was going to happen. Like you said, something going to happen, right?
yeah,
Something has
yeah,
to
something,
change.
something,
And a lot of times when you think about it, that's really how things get going in the community. You have somebody that is
sure,
fired up, that's like, nope,
yeah.
we are going to make a change,
It's
whether
hard
it's
work.
gun violence or whatever, homelessness or whatever, Medicaid, welfare, all of those things. You get somebody that has fire in their belly, and that is how those grassroots organizations get started, and that's how we make change in the community. But I was just thinking about the time and the commitment that you have given since that one day that
Yeah,
completely changed your life, right? And so not only I know I thanked you already, but you're not even done is the exciting part about this is that you haven't even
right.
scratched the surface of where this could really go. And
Yeah,
that's what's probably the most exciting for myself, for other, Black women or just women across the board. But I do want to take a moment to acknowledge your ability to connect with the dads, right? And
yeah,
the programs, I know you say you don't want to, bore us with the education, but a lot of times in the community, it is about the mom, right? The mom's carrying all these things. The mom is the one that's
yep,
always at her doctor's appointments and that sort of thing. And dads aren't always connected. And so
sure,
I love that you have highlighted this point of, hey, dads, these are some things you can do. When you got your pregnant wife or pregnant significant other, and you're like, hey, how can I be more involved? How do I make sure that I understand what these doctors are talking about, right? That they're not just talking to her. And so I think that's big because a lot of men are just used to kind of taking that back seat, right? And they're used to just saying, hey, I'm here for support or whatever. I'm not sure all these other things, but I'm here. So I just want to say, thank you for thinking about all of those things, thinking about the
absolutely.
complete puzzle that could really put this together to eradicate this maternal rates, right? This
Yeah,
like
and
just
and and, and, and you're absolutely right. So my thought is like, and our thought is, and I'm just so happy with the way that this program has been received by everyone. And so my thing is, everybody's approach and everybody's journey to parenting is different. But regardless of who you are, how you arrive there, what your relationship dynamics are, if this is your middle school sweetheart and y'all locked in, and this is exactly every single step that you had planned you saw for your life, or this may have been a surprise for both you and your partner.
yeah,
It doesn't matter,
yeah,
right? This is an opportunity for us to build a foundation. And the thing is, too, not only am I excited about how this will immediately, I feel, drastically improve maternal health outcomes, but I'm really, really excited, Latoya. Honestly, for me, this is legacy work because this is also a way for us to really fundamentally rebuild and strengthen, right? There's so much talk about the narrative about rebuilding and the black father being absent. A lot of that is propaganda. Don't even get me started, right? Because the
yes,
reality situation is fathers, and particularly black fathers, want to be there, and we are present. We
hmm
just need the tools to understand how to do it better
yep,
and how to be more supportive. And there's some brothers out there that are doing amazing jobs that I learned from.
hmm
And so, with that being said, this is the ultimate opportunity for teamwork and partnership,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You know this, you're on the other side of this. And if you can get through that, if you can get through those sleepless nights, if you can get through, your birth trauma, if you can get through getting a baby walking
Yeah.
together,
Yes.
right? And you can see value and understanding and all these things. And it will, I really feel so proud of what I believe that this will do for generations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's generational work. And so, and even if we want to go as deep as generations, I tell brothers like, look, even if something as shallow is just even it's not shallow, but even if we're talking about, look, you want to talk about how you can improve intimacy, be there,
Yes.
show up, understand how to wash those bottles and not her and her not tell you to, right? Understand how to take a feed, understand how to change that diaper, right? I'm telling you, bro, like let's do the things that, but it's all part of the puzzle, right?
Yes.
It's all, and you and now you don't feel connected. Now y'all arguing, and she don't understand you, and she feel like she raising two kids, but you just and you sitting there playing PlayStation because you don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
It's not that you're a bozo. You just feel disconnected because nobody showed you an opportunity for you to show up and be supportive,
Yeah.
right? Or what? Or you don't understand that she's saying things and there are these swings, and she isn't the same person emotionally that she was when she walked into the hospital. Guess what? You understand a little bit more about postpartum depression now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You understand how to give resources. You understand how to support. You understand, you know what I'm saying? And none of that. You understand how to tap into your journey to fatherhood and if you have trauma and how you can address those things so you can be a better dad.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that
Yes.
and what it'll do and the impact it'll have for generations to come.
Yeah. Preach to the guys. Let them know for sure. I appreciate that. Thank you.
The
Thank you
dads,
for
and
that.
as I talk about the dads are coming, but the dads aren't coming. The dads are here. The
Mhm.
dads are here,
Yes.
and and what better way um to do this because some of these things are going to be generational fixes. We're going to have to train. It's going to take us years to train up doctors and to undo
Yeah.
medical racism and bias that's been going on for 100 years. It's going to take us, we're going to have to fight to get funding for doulas. But if I can put an app in every dad's app in every dad's pocket that shows him tools, resources that are easily accessible, if I can stand up um, in-person convenings in cities across this country where dads can come and find community and find these tools and resources. I want this to be as commonly accepted as Lamaze,
Yeah.
right? When you go into the OBJ, hey, dad, scan this QR code. This is what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. There you
This is what
go.
you need. And it'll be a
Yeah.
free resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, this is good. This is good. These dads are in for a good treat. Some good education and resources for them for sure. So you've given us a lot of things, a lot of
I
resources, a
know.
lot of things that are coming up, all of that. Anything else that you want to share with the listeners? Anything else? And I'm talking to those children that don't have the fortunate or aren't as fortunate to have their mothers here anymore because of
Sure.
a situation like that. Anything you have that you could say to them? I know you're raising two boys in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, first, that's heavy. I think that um for those of you that maybe in this audience who have experienced the loss, um, my heart goes out to you. Understand that we also are working on resources for families that have been, for children that have been impacted, and we're building those out. So, to the extent that you can reach out to us and at our website, For Cure for Moms, we'd like to connect with you and support you. It's www.forcure4moms.com. And beyond that, I want you to understand that the sacrifice that your mother um, made will not be in vain. And I refuse for there not to be accountability going forward. I refuse for her story and her sacrifice. It will mean something, and it does mean something. And I think that the greatest honor that you can pay her is to just make her proud
Yeah.
and be a shining light in this world. So
Yeah.
that would be what my message to children that
Yeah.
have lost moms.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for that. And I do want to mention that. So I, in a sorority, and my line sisters and I were watching The Resident, I think. And we're watching it along. We've been binge watching. I'm like, all right, I'm done with season one. I'm
Yeah.
headed to season two. And I get to episode 20 and I say, this story sounds familiar. I'm going through the episode. I'm like, all right, sounds familiar, sounds familiar. And Charles, at the end of that episode, when they did the dedication to Kira, I was a ball of tears. I just lost it. And I texted my friend group and I said, y'all, this is Kira's story. And because the whole
Yeah.
episode, I kept saying, this sounds so familiar. Like I feel like
Yeah.
I heard this or whatever. So I wanted to just say kudos to you because I mean, I know some of the listeners, you guys are hearing him talk about these things, but you've really made an impact to where you have this, sitcom TV show that did a full episode on Kira's story.
Yeah, yeah. That was a deep experience. And so I got this call from Fox, and actually to be honest, like I said, I'm transparent, I had never seen the show. And my assistant Eva was a huge fan. She was like, I love that show. That's my
Yeah.
jam. And it so happens they shoot it here in Atlanta, and they told me that they really wanted to explore Kira. They really wanted to explore maternal mortality, and they'd like to do a story, an episode inspired by Kira's story. And of course, I was honored, but um, I was just clear that if we're going to do this, we have to do it right, and we
Mm,
have to do it in a way that is um, that really speaks to the issue, and we can't over sexualize it, and we can tell the story, but we have to talk about some of the things head on.
yeah.
And I'll share this, and I haven't. This is kind of a scoop that I haven't shared publicly. Um, and so I had the opportunity to help write, develop, and be
Oh,
on set for this. And flew out to Atlanta, sat down in the writers' room. The short story is that we had 19 revisions of that script,
whoa.
right, before we came to a place that we could agree, and I felt like it was strong, and all the way down to, and then we got it and shot it, right?
Hmm.
Watch this. Oh, I never told this. This is an exclusive scoop, right? So we shot the episode,
Okay.
and the week before it aired, I get a call saying, and so it was important to me that we address some things head on. Like we called out institutional racism on prime time, and we
Yep.
talked specifically
Yep.
about how this is addressing Black women.
Yep.
And the president of the network said, "No, I'm not comfortable uh, saying race and all this stuff," and they wanted to pull it, and
Yep.
they wanted to pull those parts of the episode, and I was like,
Mm,
no. I was like, no, like I don't like, and so from them, in their mind, what they did with this is how you got to stand your ground.
yeah.
This is what they said. They were like, look, this isn't really comfortable. We want you to get the exposure. So here's what we can do. This is how we want to do this, and we feel like this is what's important. But we'll add a link at the end of the episode where people can donate and this, that, and the third. Nah,
Nope. Mm-mm.
it ain't it. This
Mm-mm.
ain't it. Right? Well, can
Yeah.
you just, well, just, we just feel like this. Nah, nah. And to their credit, literally like 3 days before the show aired, I was on a call with the president of the network, and I stood my ground. And the things that were important to that episode, um, stayed there. So it was a cool experience. I think that the actors, the writers, did a good job, and it was inspired by Kira's story because ultimately, um, it was important that we retain the actual life rights because at some point there may be a larger project and a scripted piece that
Yeah.
may be in the works about that. But I couldn't be more proud of that, and
Yeah.
it's found this new life now that it's found its way to Netflix. And
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
it's funny. I'll share this. I know we're way over time, but I was in the gym this morning and I ran into my soccer coach,
Okay.
um, who I see him from time to time. I go to the YMCA to work out, and we catch up, and it was literally he just but we he it was good we've seen each other, and I told him that I have boys, and he literally didn't know about Cure's story
Oh.
until he watched The Resident.
Oh,
He didn't
wow.
even know he didn't even know that that's what I'd gone through. And this is like, and so it's just interesting,
Oh,
and so I want to transition that as we wrap up. Like, what I want people to understand is that there's power not only. So we're grateful for the storytelling and this helping to find different audiences that wherever they are. But I think what I want people to understand who may have been through something that is traumatic, whether it's maternal mortality or morbidity. And I know you have a story. I know some other friends, but there's power in your story.
yeah.
there's power in your experiences. And so I hope that people will find strength and healing in sharing.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that sometimes that's a hard thing to do, but for me personally, it's been a huge part of my process. And understand that by sharing your story, it gives voice and validity to somebody else.
Yes.
And people understand that they're not alone in their story, that they may feel isolated and siloed. That's how we create community. That's how people inspire, and that's how we ultimately change the world.
Yeah. Good, great segue because that's what we'll be talking about next week. So I have myself and some other ladies that will be sharing their experience. And we hear about, like the Serena Williams, right? We hear about their stories, and we're always like, if a celebrity could go through this could happen to anybody, right? And so so thank you for that segue. Like I said, next week's show we are talking to women that have experienced some type of concern or issue related to whether it's a miscarriage or a birth, in the hospital with doctors, basically ignoring them, like you said, they're
Yeah,
not the priority, and them suffering some way somehow through that. So I appreciate you for saying that, because you're right. Our stories do matter. And the more we talk about them, I know that we're definitely helping others. So just wanted to thank you all around. This has been a great conversation. I
it's
hope the
truly my honor.
listeners
Thank
have
you.
definitely learned some things. You've definitely shared some resources and things that's coming. We'll definitely look forward to it. And for those out there, if you haven't seen The Resident season 2, I think episode 20 it was, a phenomenal story. So kudos for you for standing your ground on that, because we definitely were able to feel at least a little bit of kind of that story
I'm glad.
and how it played out for you and your family. So again, condolences to you, and just thank you so much for sharing Kira's story. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing in the community, and we're behind you. We're behind you. We're
I
supporting.
appreciate it. Look,
Yes.
I don't take it for granted. I'm grateful. I'm
Thank you.
grateful.
So
I truly am.
for Kira for moms, you can find him there. I love that you've started the For Cure for Dads as well, right? So all of those organizations are out there. We will definitely have those links and those types of things for our listeners as well. So again, thank you so much, Charles, for being on the show
My honor.
today.
Thank you for
This
having me.
is Life Transitions Radio Talk Show with yours truly, Coach Latoya, here on WDRB Media, the voice of the community. We'll see y'all next week.